Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Radiant Black podcast. And my God, did we have an amazing issue in Radiant Black issue 4. How are you feeling about it, Matt?
I'm feeling crazy. It's your boy Radiant Matt here with his mind blown. Like, Higgins was not kidding when he said this was a game changer and things will never be the same. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that this was one of the biggest twists in comics.
Oh, yeah, no. I feel like I've been sucked into a black hole and just chewed up and spat out, and I'm not sure what to think of this issue because there's just a lot going on here.
Yeah, no kidding. If you haven't read issue 4, guys, tread no further. Guys, girls, do not read further, listen further, because this was crazy. And this is a twist that you should really experience firsthand. Like, it was nuts. So, read the issue before you pick this podcast up for sure.
If you haven't read issue 4 yet, do not listen to this episode because we're going to spoil everything. And oh my God, oh my God, I still can't believe what happened in this issue. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's unbelievable. I'm like, you consider everything we've talked about the last 2 episodes, everything I'm pretty sure people have been talking about, Nathan and what's going on, and we just get this, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, no one called this. We listened to Radiant Radio, and yeah, Michael Basuto was saying no one guessed this twist at all, and it's true. No one. I didn't think this. I was thinking of theories and where we could go. I did not think that Nathan was dying. We put so much into, Nathan's character, him being, what stage of his life he was in, his family. It was like a tight core of characters, like you mentioned, Bash. How we didn't have anyone outside of it, and it hurts that much more when such a big part of our world is gone.
Yep, and everyone was warned earlier, so now we're going to get into the issue, and we'll talk about some brief highlights first before we dive deep into the analysis and everything. But first things first, how about that amazing new cover art we've just got?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We were to say we were delighted is an understatement. We were contacted by, the people at Radiant Black, and they allowed us to exclusively reveal that amazing cover from Federico Sabatini did the illustration, and Martina Forti did an amazing job on the colors. It really pops. It's my phone background. We don't know what issue it is what cover it's going to be, but oh my God, it's an awesome cover, and I was so excited that we got to reveal it on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, they asked us to make it our profile picture, and we were delighted, We of course we wanted to, and we love it. So thank you so much to Federico and Martina. It's an amazing piece, and we love it with all our hearts. We're super delighted to be able to show it off.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm gonna have to stop myself from buying more than 10, really, from less than. I'm gonna have to set a limit. But no, it's beautiful. It's definitely up there in the pantheon of amazing covers. Like, this Radiant Black series has had so many cool covers, and we'll talk about the future ones later on. But oh, it's amazing, and super excited about that. We were pumped. But yeah, our reactions when we read issue 4, Bash, you messaged me, and it was just a mixture of like swear words and like I can't believe it. Like, we were shocked. It was crazy. It was like we were transported to that the realm with the robot there. It was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, people, Higgins even compared it to the issue 11 reveal of Invincible, and honestly, I felt that in some ways. Like, I felt the gravity of the situation, pun intended, being, it was very high stakes. I felt like shit was going down.
Yeah, I bring up Lost a lot when we talk about Radiant Black as far as like twist and speculation, but it hit home where, like, if you watch it deep into Lost, you learn something about certain characters or aspects of the show's lore that you can then, in a rewatch of the show, it really changes how you look at the show and how you take it in and how you enjoy it. And I feel like with the death of Nathan, like I went back and reread the first issue, and seeing him meet his parents and stuff like that, like, it's not meet his parents, but go back to living at home. There's lines in there that are insanely relevant and hit super hard. Like, there's this panel. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but he goes, but Nathan's mom says, "You're a writer. You have been your whole life. That's not going to change." And it really didn't, because he didn't have much of a whole life left. And she says, "So what if you come home for a little while? The great thing about writing is you can do it anywhere. So for now on, you're just going to do it from here." I feel like that might tie into a theory I might have later on. So we'll talk about that later.
But yeah, no, there's so much going on. The first few issues that really dive deep into Nathan and his life and his background, and makes you feel like, this is the main character. So to get the twist we got in this one, it's a big one. But yeah, let's dive into the issue. We open on the first page, and we've got the title. It's called Everything Changes, and for once it was true. Everything does really change in this issue.
Yeah, no kidding. Definitely the status quo will never be the same. Nathan, we know what happens, but yeah, it opens up and like we see that their minds are merging. The Radiant is talking to Nathan in the foreign language that he doesn't quite understand yet, and the way the visuals are, it's like it's overtaking him, and he's being drawn into this realm now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, we see on the first page that he's already in this radiant realm. He's talking to this being. Presumably it's the Radiant or, someone we don't know yet. We see that the text is in a language that he doesn't understand. And shout out to Mara Camille on Twitter, a fellow friend and follower who actually deciphered the entire Radiant language on her own, through her own research, which is super impressive, by the way. So massive props, massive respect. You can follow her on Twitter at The Flannel Death. Yeah, highly recommend checking her out. She has awesome content, and we were just super impressed that someone managed to crack the code that fast, to be honest.
Yeah, it was like in 3 issues. She's like, she's a massive part of the fandom, and it's always great to see what she's posting and her reactions on Radiant Black. Also, like on Radiant Radio, Kyle highlighted just the cool work that Becca Carey did in the second panel from the bottom here, where like when he says "please stop" and the P slowly transforms into the Radiant text or the Radiant whatever language it is. So I thought it's a really nice touch and really adds to the merging and really pumps up the scene here.
Yeah, really great stuff. And thanks to Mara, now we can understand this text. But basically, in the first bubble, we've got the Radiant being saying, "Hello, Nathan Burnett. It is good to see you." And then, we've got Nathan trying to communicate. We're saying he's freaking out. He's letting it know that he doesn't understand what it's saying. And it replies, "You will soon. We are engaging in the process of sync here. Shall we take the next step?" And you see that, that's when the black hole thing starts to expand or whatever it is. And probably, presumably that's the process of sync. And Nathan's freaking out, obviously. And we get this next page. It's an amazing splash page by Marcelo Costa. I really got to shout this out. This is an amazing artwork. It was shown, prior to the release of the issue in the teaser pages, and my God, we were blown away. I love this. I could genuinely get a poster of this in the back of my room, just hang it up there for when we do video episodes, show it off. But no, this is something amazing. And presumably he's in existence now. They're synced.
Yeah, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but this is like technically 2 pictures, so it's a splash page. No, but it's really awesome. Like hearing about Marcelo Costa drawing it, and Kyle said that it almost killed him, and it really did. It was crunch time to get it out, and he really hurt his hand in trying to draw this in time. And thank you for your service, because it's really amazing. Jokes aside, like God, that's amazing, and I hope that in the future we still get more of his art in a way that he isn't harmed, because God, that's really, really amazing. Like, it's one of my favorite splash pages of all time. It's only been 2 weeks or so since I've seen it, but God, it's just the colors, everything about it is just remarkable. It belongs in a museum.
Yeah, it really is amazing, and it gets the readers excited for what else is to come. Gets you dive. It's like a small peek into what lies forward in the Radiant world, and it's awesome. Like, I can't, I'm just blown away by this piece. But yeah, we see that Nathan's finally talking to this big robot being that we saw on the second print cover of issue number 1. And right now, as readers, we're not sure what the hell is going on. We're not sure if this is a dream. We're not sure if this is happening in real time. We don't know what the fuck is going on, to be honest. But yeah, we move on, and we're back in Lockport, Illinois, and we're with our favorite best friend, Marshall, and he's just chilling on the couch, typical day for him, typical weekend day. You see a few bottles by the couch, of course. Marshall looks like he had himself a little tipsy night there, and he's got himself a bowl of snacks, and he's got himself a little puppers on the side, it looks like.
Yeah, I guess it's licorice, right? That's what that's supposed to be.
I guess. I'm not sure if it could be licorice or jerky.
That was my thought, but the way that it's like chew jerky, I mean, you would be chewing jerky. I don't know. The onomatopoeia is where I'm looking for clues. But yeah, no, he's sharing it with his dog there, and sharing is really going to be the theme when Nathan's going to be unwillingly sharing the Radiant with Marshall later on. But I love this. I think it's really cool. I don't know if it's foreshadowing or not, but Marshall's texting with Nathan, and his text bubbles are in black. not Nathan. So I don't know if that's a purposeful choice or not. But usually when I'm texting with someone on my iPhone, I'm in gray and the other person is in blue. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And we see that, Marshall's just taking it easy. He's having a chill day. Nathan asks him what's up, and he lets Nathan know that there's a Soderbergh marathon on the Criterion channel that he's got to get to, of course. And, that he never misses out of sight.
To correct myself, it actually is the reverse. Actually, my texts will be in blue and the other person's will be in green. So I was wrong about that. So yeah. Other than that, one thing I did notice is if you look at the text bubble there, this might be a mistake, but it says, and when it says, and I will literally never miss out on out of sight, what's up? The L and the L in will and the L in literal are both bolded. I don't know if that's purposely done or if that's a mistake or not, or I just read too much in between the lines, especially these two lines. But yeah, I don't know. That's just something I noticed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Perhaps there's some clues in there, readers. Let us know. Listeners, let us know if there's something you could find in there.
Might just be for those people that look too much into it, like myself, saying don't read too much between the lines. But no, I like this conversation between the two. It's a nice little setup as to what they're doing, and I really find that Higgins nails the dialogue between two friends. Like this sounds like conversations that I can hear someone having.
Yeah, and this kind of reminds me of back on Invincible, like both on the TV show and in the comic book. For example, on the TV show, we get that one scene where he's in the costume and he's just trying to text Amber in the middle of getting like assaulted, and this kind of reminds me of that in the sense that here's this friendship dynamic between Marshall and Nathan, and they're trying to explore the power set finally. And you could tell that it's not just finally for the readers, and we've been waiting 3 issues to see more of, Nathan's powers and what's going to happen next, some action. But it's also finally for Marshall because he just says it's about time, baby.
Yeah, Marshall's more eager to be doing this than Nathan is in a lot of ways. Nathan's more passive, and that's a major theme that, when he dies later on, he doesn't have the killer instinct. Now, I don't know if that's a lack of willing to take the leap, but murder is a big deal, and even if the person's been doing some shady things, it doesn't mean that they deserve death. So it's a big theme in this issue.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see because we both talked about last episode where Marshall felt oddly comfortable with the whole situation going down in issue number 1. We saw that, or is that the first episode? Yeah, but we saw that while Nathan just discovered this black hole and he's got caught up in this whole thing, and he just suddenly has superpowers. Marshall was there just comforting him, kind of letting him know what to do, kind of like, okay, take a breather. And then he figured out how to remove the helmet when he was wearing it for the first time. So in some sense, when it comes to intuition, we see that Marshall's oddly more comfortable with this kind of stuff than Nathan is.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because Marshall literally says to Nathan, after Nathan goes off on him after they fly to the water tower, he says, look, I don't know what happened in LA, but I know you, the kind of person you are, how much you care. I mean, the fact that you're worried so much about this is a lot. You're not going to screw this up, man. I won't let you. So, obviously, I guess he does screw it up if he ends up dead. So that's going to be weighing on Nathan or on Marshall even more heavily, knowing that, he literally promised him, I won't let you screw this up, more so than even on top of his best friend being dead. He literally says, I won't let you mess this up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, we brought that up before as well. So it's interesting to see Marshall so close to this whole situation. He feels very compelled to keep an eye out on the whole, radiant power and how it's used moving forward. So that's interesting. And as we see that manifests itself through him, somewhat training Nathan on how to use his powers.
Yeah, I get it kind of I know they're not running up mountains and stuff, but I kind of get Rocky vibes with them training, even though they're not really breaking sweats, but they are breaking action figures, so they're close enough.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's shout out to Mara Camille for another piece that she pointed out, was that these action figures are actually from characters from another comic book done by Kyle Higgins called Cowl, or Chicago Organized Workers League.
Yeah, and the guy on the right, on the bottom of the page, you can definitely tell that's Nightwing inspired because, Nightwing is Kyle Higgins' favorite superhero, so I don't think that's a coincidence that he's got the blue and the black combo in that shape.
Oh, no, not at all. And so we see the guys, they're training, they're getting ready for more threats and just trying to discover more about his powers because he hasn't really done much, and that's something that Marshall's going to make a point out of later on.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Shazam movie where they almost have this view of like superheroes and know what superheroes can do, and they're just going like, well, you can probably shoot energy blast. Like they're doing almost what we do on the podcast, like speculating, like, okay, well, what could he do if he can shoot beams, or if he can radiate energy, he can probably shoot blasts, and of course he can. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so of course we get some quips between the two boys, and he's like, Nathan's like, "Is this your professional opinion?" And Marshall's just like, "Oh, I mean, I can leave," but it's just like, "No, it's cold." And he's like, "You've got a black hole in your chest, man." And Nathan lets him know that it's not on his face. Thank God.
Yeah, and wouldn't the black hole just make it colder?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but yeah,
Whatever.
it's,
There's
it's
energy, so
presuming
it
the
could be.
energy. Yeah, exactly, all the heat from the energy. So. But he's like, yeah, okay, you're right. Energy blasts are probably possible. So, he gives it a small, they go to all college try. He manages to shoot a little weakling of a beam, and, that's a start.
Yeah, well, I'm just waiting for when whoever's in the radiant black suit can get like a halo like beam sword. That's what I'm waiting for. That's gonna be pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Energy
we
sword.
have a
Before you
moment.
guys.
Yeah, we have a moment that's actually relevant to that, which we'll bring up towards the end of the podcast. But yeah, no, that's funny. Good point.
Yeah, so unfortunately, not a good day for collector's items as they're destroyed, a lot of them, but it's really sweet to see them testing out the powers. And you see that, Marshall is really kind of like pushing Nathan a bit just to get that rage out because, it's not just, if it works for the Hulk, it might work for him. But I like this little dialogue when they're talking about, I think you need to get angry. And then, Nathan says it's cliched and it's like things are cliched for a reason. And maybe you just need something or you just need to emote something.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, at this point, we see that while they are practicing their powers, they're also having a discussion about where these powers come from. As we see Nathan, ponder by saying, I don't know, just thinking about everything. Like these powers had to come from somewhere, right? So that gives us an idea that, it's interesting because this happens after we get those two pages where Nathan is in the process of sinking to the radiant being and vice versa. So we're assuming, or at least I'm assuming, and there's no way to really tell whether I'm right or wrong, but we welcome any opinions, of course, that if he does know that he's in the process of sinking to the radiant being at this point, then it's safe to say that he has a lot of questions and he's thinking about those questions as it happens.
Yeah, and it also gives Marshall a bit of a heads up on what he can expect when he touches the black hole and says yes immediately. He's not going completely blind like Nathan, who's, experiencing this a bit, but at least Marshall has some secondhand knowledge of like what is going on for Nathan and his interpretation.
Yeah, and while watching Radiant Radio, shout out to Radiant Radio, it's a podcast between Strawberry 17, a YouTuber / Twitch streamer, and Kyle Higgins, where they discuss the Radiant Black series. It's once a month, and we advertise that on the Instagram page and on the Twitter page.
Yeah,
so
Michael Basuto too is there. I love the energy he brings to it. He's fun.
If anyone's ever interested, check it out. We advertise it on our socials, and we highly recommend it. But yeah, Kyle brought up the fact that during the last episode, he brought up the fact that the syncing process was, it took some time the first time it happens between Nathan and the radiant being, because presumably, and he brought this up on Twitter as well, presumably that's the first time that a radiant being has synchronized to a human being,
or at least this radiant.
Yeah, so and it brings it up by saying, "Oh, organic being." So we know that for this rating, this is the first time syncing to a human being. It might be Casa that might be quicker the second time around. It might be a much quicker process now that it's not a foreign matter that they're synchronizing with, but something that they're familiar with because they're synchronized with it before. So that's worth bringing up.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think it might add to my thoughts of, are we going to see Radiant sync with aliens or other species? Because, if they were talking a lot about how, like, if it's synced with something else and, like, different species. So I think that we're definitely on track to maybe get aliens with Radiance on them.
Yeah, that's super awesome, actually. I would be excited to see that. But, yeah, we see that they continue training. And, Nathan has suspicions about Radiant Red, being out there. And what if, he's part of the whole power of where these powers come from? So he feels that he should be able to defend himself. And that's the whole purpose of today.
Yeah, I like that. And I like how he wants to know the extent. He wants to know when he has to run and too, which is also smart. Like, you got to know when to hold him, know when to fold him, know when to walk away, and know when to run, right? Like, you have to know your enemy, the way you survive these situations. Unfortunately, he did not know when to run in this issue, or maybe he did, but he made the heroic thing and stayed to hold up the building to make sure people could get out.
Yeah, more on that later, actually, because we have a lot of analysis.
Oh, for sure.
Nathan's beginning to tell Marshall about the big robot, about how it's been talking to him and he's beginning to understand it. And Marshall lets him know that it's okay because they're going to do things together when the time comes. But for now, Marshall's fully confident that Nathan can produce something better than that measly blast he did earlier.
Yeah, for sure, and he does everything he can to kind of get the emotion out of Nathan there. And he says his prose sucks. Like all the your best friends know what buttons to push if they really want to get you pissed off. And Marshall's no different. Where we bring up the Oxford commas, and he says Chandler wish he never read him, and we heard about his love for Chandler in the other issue. So in the first issue, so Marshall's used Chandler to insult Nathan both times. That's the only time he's brought up is basically to shit on Nathan, which is no bueno. And then we learn about Justine too, who Marshall says would still be around if Nathan knew how to conjugate.
Yeah, which is interesting because that's a perfectly ambiguous line, which I think works very well, might I say.
Yeah, we mentioned last week how there wasn't a love interest mentioned for Nathan, and now there has been a love interest mentioned, but Nathan's dead, so that's going to be kind of rough. I don't think that's going to be coming to fruition.
Yeah, and we get two of my favorite panels in this issue. One is just, of the expression of Nathan's face right as he hears Marshall say those insults. And you could tell it's just such a well drawn out expression from Marcelo Costa. Big fan of his artwork, and he continues to please week in, week out. And then the next panel is perfect meme quality, and we might have something in the works with this one, but it was just a panel of Nathan calling Marshall a motherfucker before he gets ready to disintegrate the action figures with his big beam.
Yeah, a special beam cannon, and he's just blowing that stuff up. It's really, really cool. I do love the mother effer or whatever with the radiant text, and now we know how to say fuckery with the radiant text there. So that's sweet. I do love that. It gets you really pumped up, and then Marshall's plan works. So apparently, being an asshole in this situation really worked to Marshall's advantage, as it got exactly what they needed for Nathan to move up to the next level and shoot the big blasts.
Yeah, and at this point of the issue, we're reading and we're just I'm liking the pacing of the issue, don't get me wrong, but I thought there was going to be a lot of action. Where's the action? Is Radiant Red just going to show up on the last page? And and the boys, they feel with their progress with that big beam, they feel like they made some good progress and that it's time to, head out, get some pre-movie beers, and they decide that that's a plan. And, there's some more banter and exchange between the two, but in the next page, we cut to existence.
We're back in existence, and we get to see the radiant text is just translated. Nathan can fully understand it now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he was talking about earlier how he was beginning to understand it, and now their communication process is almost complete. So it's interesting to see, is this happening in real time? Has this already happened? It's a little bit confusing. We don't know for sure, but we see that the robot is encountering his brain, its organic digital brain, integration language centers, sync, incomplete, in progress. So they're in the progress of synchronizing, and this is the first time we see the Radiant bring up the reason for giving him these powers, where he talks about, okay, our connection is final, permanent. For the duration of your life, you are part of existence. But war is near soon for the Radiant. He will kill you and your entire planet. To die is to lose everything. Will you do all that is required to save your species? And here we see, will you take his life? The Radiant asking Nathan to kill someone, but we're not sure who. We can assume as readers that it's Radiant Red, right? Because there's just a Radiant Black and Radiant Red makes sense.
And that's who he lets go and then dies for, basically.
This is still a curious point. We're not sure exactly what's going on here. There's a lot to unpack. And I just want to point out, it's very curious that most of the color scheme is blue and red while, they're in existence. You see that the being himself, the robot, is this dark color with some blue in it, but then you see that a lot of the background is red. So I just thought I'd point that out. That was interesting.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. And we kind of jumped over it when we were just laughing at, Nathan calling Marshall a motherfucker, but he actually says it. He says fucker in those words in the dialect of the Radiant language. So I think that's I appreciate the puke-based storytelling in issue 1. This is covering up a swear word. It's a double-edged sword. You can get fucker in there without actually writing it out, and you can also show that Nathan is speaking the language and when he's emotionally intense. So maybe when he's fully in tune with these emotions, he's even more connected with the Radiant.
Yeah, that's something that Marshall points out, and he's just you totally cussed at me in a different language.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool, and it just shows that this is the big preposition for Nathan of you're gonna have to kill Radiant Red.
Yeah, and here's where we begin to get some real foreshadowing of the big twist that's going to happen. We see the two boys, they're holding their grocery bags. They've just gone and gotten their beer, their supplies for their movie night or their show night or whatever that's going to happen. And, we see Nathan asking Marshall, you ever think about what you do with all this? And, Marshall's like, if I grab the black hole instead? And he's like, yeah. And Marshall lets him know that, yeah, he's had hundreds of ideas, many of which involve him getting crazy rich. And we see that Marshall has thought a lot about getting the powers. He's been thinking about the powers since he's seen the black hole in issue number 1. But it almost sounds like he's kind of somewhat bitter that Nathan got the powers because they have a discussion and he's just like, "You're radiant black," and Nathan lets him know that he's like, "That sounds like an opinion," but he's just like, "Nah, it's just that." You've barely done anything since you've had these powers. And he tells Nathan that he lacks vision.
He's just pissed. Like if your friend got superpowers, you would probably be a little jealous. Even if you're the most like balanced person, you would probably be like, holy shit, I wish, especially comic readers, you'd be like, geez, I wish I had some ability.
It's interesting because, especially, we've read this multiple times. We've read this issue multiple times because, as podcasters, we want to see, or just, as readers who enjoy this series so much. Yeah, we just love it, to be honest. I've read this multiple times because I just couldn't believe it the first time. So I had to read it again, make sure I didn't miss anything. And, this timing it's very interesting that this happens now, right before Marshall gets the power. So
literally minutes before he's confronted with that. And also, it doesn't just foreshadow him getting the powers. It also foreshadows my favorite end segment where we're doing Marshall's School of Business as well, where he says that he's got at least 80 of them involved me getting rich, all of his schemes. So I really dig that. Granted, these ones at the end of the comic so far haven't involved powers. It's just that he's always had these schemes, but that just kind of like, millions of ideas bloom from that.
We were asking for action. Higgins says here, I gave you action, and we get the action.
Yeah, careful what you wish for.
Yeah, be careful what you sure indeed, because my God, is there a lot of action. And we just see boom, an explosion. The boys get launched into the air. And we see Radiant Red making an introduction, and he is pissed off, showing
it says,
up.
Hello, Nathan. I know who you are. None of this Radiant Black stuff.
No, he's just like, what a nice hometown you have. You can tell the tone right away. He's not here to fuck around. He's here to, take some lives. He's here to make threats. He's here to get some shit done. And we get this awesome 2 pages from Marcel Costa, just genuinely extremely kinetic artwork, super clean, super just overall beautiful artwork. We see, Radiant Red tossing Nathan up in the air, saying, let's talk, which is an interesting proposition, And meanwhile, we see Nathan transforming into Radiant Black, and my God, it's such a nice 2 pages. Yeah. Especially when you see those eyes ignite,
Oh yeah, it's business time, and he almost looks like he has like a mohawk when the helmet's like going up to his head and stuff like that. Like that's pretty sweet. I like that. It's almost like the Captain Marvel suit, right, with the mohawk.
Yeah. And, just an awesome page. Reminds me of that actually 125 for number 1 by David Finch. Just the way it's all set up, and we get a very funny interjection from Marshall saying, "Oh, dude, you're in for it now. Also, don't worry, I'm shooting video. You can watch your ass get beat down at 120 frames per second. Of course, we need 120 FPS. It wouldn't be right without all 120 frames of his red ass getting kicked."
Radiant Red almost did him a favor destroying his phone, though. Otherwise, he would have filmed his buddy dying, which you don't want up on your phone or in the cloud or anywhere, really. You don't want to relive that memory.
No, that's true. And, we see this epic little moment where Radiant Red just snatches the phone from Marshall and disintegrates it with his hand, so it gives us an idea of what Radiant Red's powers are like. He could literally just disintegrate the phone in his hands. Like, we didn't even see any like back matter or anything. It's just gone. But
not just that, but that line he says after of like he's like, or else what? And then Radiant Red's like, or else I'll absorb your skin and let your muscles and your fat spill out. That's such a visceral line. It's so descriptive, and you can immediately picture it. It's so gory, and I love it.
Yeah, it was very interesting, like a reaction, almost Omni-Man, like, but then we see, kind of like a Green Lantern, right, where, Radiant Blue he projects his energy, or just grabs Radiant Red and just tosses him, just launches him straight into the air, knocks into a few buildings along the way. Super brutal.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't just like you're in a junkyard now. It's like there's people around. The stakes are raised, and you can't, this is a city that he knows and loves. Even if he hated it, he wouldn't be letting people die here. So he's got to be careful. He throws him up to the roof, and Radiant Red is not so cautious.
Yeah, and you can see it's like a cue the heroic music moment for Nathan, where he's trying to, do the responsible thing. He's trying to tell bystanders to get inside, stay off the streets. He's trying to take the fight off off land, try to take it into the skies where there's less casualties, there's less people around, there's less collateral damage. But we see that he lands on the roof looking for Radiant Red, but Radiant Red is too quick. He materializes almost instantly in front of him and just charges him, knocking him 3 stories down into the building, through it, crashing into each floor. And he just tells him, "Nice hometown. I hope they have insurance."
Yeah, I mean, and he just emphasizes again that he like, yeah, I know this is your hometown. Like he's really trying to get in his head too, because that'll throw you off any fight. It's like, oh my god, this guy knows me. The mask is just a decoration at this point because it's not hiding anything.
Yeah, and it's super interesting because we see that, he's not even here trying to reason, Radiant Red, which is a very, we don't even know why he's trying to employ that approach. It's interesting because
I think it's just to intimidate him so he doesn't come back. Like, I know this. Do not mess with me. And he's probably got some big plans coming up.
Yeah, and it's almost like he's giving off the vibe that he's better trained than Radiant Black, that he's, had the power for longer, that he has more experience. And we see that his suit kind of reacts differently to the power used. You see that his shoulder plates and his bracers, they almost kind of glow with this red circular energy.
Yeah, you pointed it out to me. Like maybe that's what he was working on in the junkyard. Maybe he's got some new metals and he's like he's really synced with this radiant, and the war's coming, right? So maybe he's the radiant's telling him what he needs to do to improve what's already pretty awesome.
It's really interesting, and we see that the threats keep coming from Radiant Red. He just lets Nathan know that he knows who he is, he knows where he lives, and he tells me. And he says, "Believe me, I can get to you at any time. I can get to them." And I'm assuming he means, the Burnetts, Mr. and Mrs. Burnett. And he says, if he ever sees his face again, this is the least damage that's going to happen. And
yeah, it'd be cool if he said, "Do you want some oatmeal, Nathan?" or something like that. Like he really knows.
Yeah, Nathan just reacts impulsively, but we get this awesome panel of just a big beam of, black, white, and blue energy shooting out of Nathan's arm, just smashing Radiant Red down. And then we see his hand glowing, this tinge. It looks amazing. It's like this black and white energy. It honestly looks like the third print cover where his hands are glowing. And he just almost one-shot KO'd Radiant Red there.
Yeah, he needs to set up like an Adam Eve like Green Lantern wall there. I don't know if that was for him to bounce into or what, but oh my god! And you can see that the eye is revealed of Radiant Red, and there's real fear in that eye of like, hey, like Nathan when he gets fired up and there's people, he knows that it's not just the people around him but his family at stake. He there's no messing around because we know it's tied to emotions, and he's fired up. So Radiant Red better watch out.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate again how awesome the artwork is in these pages, how dynamic it is. There's just so much going on. I love seeing the use of the powers finally because it's just so awesome. Like, this is what we live for. It reminds me of all those pages in Invincible, those big, amazing pages by Ryan Otley where you knew there was something kind of like whenever someone was going to get punched in the face, you knew you were going to get that visceral Otley blood, you knew whenever there was going to be war, there was always going to be chaos and destruction. And we're seeing here there's a lot of destruction, and the powers are just so beautiful. They're really conveyed well on these pages.
Yeah, and I love this how you see the eye looking back at Nathan, and then it cuts to him in that world and like the realm where they're sinking, and you just see Nathan and he's all yellow. This is like the reverse Dr. Manhattan, where it's not that he doesn't care, it's that he cares so much, right? Like he's just alone, and it's so cool where it's like what he's feeling, like I can't kill him, I don't have it in me, I'm not a murderer. And then you see the eyes flare a little bit, and he says, "Don't come back here ever again." And then of course when you give you can give mercy, but don't turn your back immediately, because then they're gonna get, this happens, and Radiant Red, charges up and fires a blast to Nathan, and he fires back, and the massive explosion goes down.
Yeah, Radiant Red was not appreciative of the act of mercy, and he decided to respond hostily. Of course, luckily for us, Radiant Black manages to dodge the attack, but he replies with his own beam, and those two collide, creating a huge shockwave that damages the building quite a bit. And Radiant, Nathan's pretty pissed off. He's just like, "You dumbass, like why did you just do that? Like we were, it was implying that like it was over, we settled it, and then you just had to go through this again. Like what an idiot."
My question is, what's Radiant Red's Radiant telling him? Is he saying you have to kill this guy too, or does he have something different going on? Of like, okay, we've got plans, scare this guy, and we'll keep building up to whatever we're building.
That's a really good point, because we see that, if we're going to go back to the page where Radiant was talking to Nathan, we see that he tells him that war is soon for the Radiant. He will kill you and your entire planet. So maybe he's talking about Radiant Red. Maybe Who knows? Maybe the person who's under the Radiant Red suit he doesn't necessarily, the way he looks, the way, his eyes look, like they almost looks like it's reluctant, like he doesn't want to be doing what he's doing. But maybe, he's in a situation where he's being threatened by Radiant Red or the being that controls the red powers. Who knows? We don't know.
Also, it's a bond for life. If you take the radiant out of a person unwillingly, would it kill a person? Or because it's supposed to be for life, can you undo that in any way without killing the person? I don't know.
It's true. And is it like a symbiote? Like, is it consensual where does it have to be both ways, or how does it work? We don't know anything yet. We're still learning. So that's quite interesting. But it's cool that we do get a peek, a little peek at the what Radiant Red looks like. We just get a peek at his eye, and Radiant Black's first reaction is to hold something up right now. And props to Matt, because he said that he felt his powers were somewhat like Green Lanterns, and we see these just energy projections come out of Radiant Black and begin to hold up the concrete.
I got a ton of Spider-Man vibes from this too. Like, it just feels like something in the Raimi movies where they're like really intimate settings, like where there's in a building with Green Goblin, like in a flaming building, trying to impersonate a woman in trouble or whatever. I love it because it's another example of Nathan. We've seen him put what's right in front of what he needs, right? And this is the biggest example of it, where he literally gives his life for these people to make sure this building doesn't kill anyone.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It does honestly look like the Amazing Spider-Man number 33, that famous cover that everybody likes where Spider-Man's collapsing with the weight of the building and the water is drowning him. It does remind me of that scene. That's a good point, really good callback. And, he's just freaking out. He's trying to hold the building in whatever way he can. We see that despite his powers and, despite being a superhero, he's barely holding it together. He does it just long enough for the people to get out. He finds that a few people from upstairs are, running out. He asks them if there's anybody else. He tells them to get out right now. And I just want to talk about how much of a dumbass Radiant Red is, or maybe he is just truly overwhelmed. It's hard to tell, but he just stands there. He's, unable to really react. But his first reaction is to let Nathan know that the walls are crumbling, the bearing walls are crumbling, and there's about to be nothing to hold up to. So Nathan reacts impulsively by, saving the day. He knocks everybody out of the building, all the hostages, including Radiant Red. And, there's this heroic scene where we see that he's trying to hold it together. He's trying to hold all the weight, but it just collapses on him, and, he's gone.
The building's crushing him, and you see, I couldn't believe it. Reading these next couple of pages, it took me like a day or two to really believe it's Nathan's gone. You see that Marshall's running, goes, Nathan, where are you? Digging through the rubble, and he's just hoping. And there's, he's like, no, don't do this, man. Come back, please. You have to stay alive. Even if Marshall wants the powers, not he doesn't want it like this. He wants his best friend, Yeah,
and it's interesting because he, that's not what he's thinking about immediately. The first thing he's thinking about is just Nathan. Where are you? Are you okay? And we cut back to the conversation between the Radiant Being and Nathan himself, where he tells him once more that their connection is final. It's permanent for the duration of his life while he's a part of existence. So, and, the interesting thing for me during this whole time is just Nathan's reaction, his face. He's not saying anything. You just get a glimpse at what his face looks like, but I feel like his face is saying a lot. It's almost like disappointment, reluctance, like he doesn't want to be a killer. But he almost doesn't have it in him to be a superhero kind of thing. It's hard to tell. There's a lot going on in this panel. What do you think?
Well, here's my thoughts on it. Do you think that the Radiant could have healed Nathan or prevented this from killing him, whether he has control of it or not? Could it have made a barrier around him? We've seen that, Red can make those walls, right? So my thought is, could the suit have saved Nathan, or did the Radiant give up on him knowing that he didn't have the killer instinct required? Because if that's happening in real time, what we're seeing, that face of him doubting it, whether that's a flash in Nathan's head or, something that the Radiant is reading in Nathan and just seeing him not be able to kill him, did it let him die for a worthier host, quote unquote?
Kyle's got us chasing every goddamn little rabbit hole. I don't even know what to think anymore. After last issue, I was just re-listening to last episode, trying to get ideas and stuff, and I was just like, man, we had so many ideas and none of them were right. And I'm just now I don't know what to think about anything. Kyle's just coming out of left field. He could literally surprise us with absolutely anything. I love it. I agree with everyone saying it's good to be it's good to feel surprised again by comics and not be spoiled by solicitations. And boy, do I agree. And I just want to say, and we forgot to bring this up earlier because we've been so caught up in the emotion of this issue, but the Radiant Black number 4 and number 125 ratio variant by the Wally is fucking incredible. Like truly, like, I'm a big fan of comics. I chase a lot of the nice variants that come out every week, or the ones that I really like. And for me personally, the week that came out, the week that Radiant Black 4 came out, I thought Radiant Black 4 125 was the cover of the week. Tagging us on Instagram, showing off your copies that you guys recently got, because we love it. We appreciate it. And if anyone ever wants to submit some questions to our Gmail, that's there as well. But we just love the cover. I mean, I know we got a copy, so we hope everyone else got a copy.
Yeah, the covers, like, there's like literally we could just do a separate podcast weekly, or maybe once a month when every issue comes out, just talking about the covers. Like, they're so friggin' amazing. Like, cover C is really sweet. I like that one a lot. That, like, it's hard. I couldn't pick a favorite Radiant Black cover. My mind changes every time I look at them. Like, they're so amazing. But yeah, the one you mentioned, the 1 in 25, is amazing. Like, it's so dynamic. Like, it's badass. You just want to see like an animated series right now. But I know we're probably gonna have to wait a couple years.
Yeah, and I mean, we think all the variants are amazing, right? Like, we're not just fans of the 125. We thought the cover A by Eduardo Ferragato and Marcelo Costa was amazing. We thought the cover B by Justin Mason was awesome, with the mask half broken off Nathan's face, and we just thought that the Duality 125 variant, that was something special. But not to veer off tracks of the episode and the issue itself, back to the issue. We've seen that this is almost like a repeat of some of the panels earlier, where he's just letting him know what's going to happen, that their connection, their synchronized post-synchronization is permanent, it's lasting, and that he's going to die. And we cut back to Marshall, and he's freaking out, right? He's crying. He's just lost his best friend, and out of nowhere. And this blew my mind even more. Like, God damn it. Like, I had a feeling this might happen, like, after I read the last page, but to see it actually happen was another thing. The black hole just levitate, come out of Nathan's chest, and we see it begin to talk to Marshall, saying, your friend is gone, deceased, and, our connection is final, permanent for the duration of your life, and you are part of existence. But war is near soon for the Radiant, and he will kill you and your entire planet. And, the Radiant beings basically asking Marshall, do you have what it takes? Will you take his life? And we see Marshall, without hesitation, without even thinking about it, just say yes, and he grabs the black hole, and it fades to white.
Yeah, I mean, that ending to me, not to bring up Lost again, but it is a lot like the season 5 finale in a lot of ways. And Nathan's character arc, I assume that in this form, this will be the last we see of him. It reminds me of arc of a certain character on Lost. If you've seen the show, you know who I'm talking about, who has a really sad death, and you think that they're going to do so much more, but they die pretty abruptly. And this reminds me of the 5th season finale of Lost, where it looks like there's like a reset. Every episode ends with like a black fade to black with the Lost text. This ends with like the white text. This is like a whole new era now. You don't know what the future is going to hold now, where we totally switched to Marshall presumably being the main character until Higgins decides to throw us all for a loop and maybe kill him. But for the time being, it's Marshall's story now, and I guess it has been all along, really.
Yeah, and we talked about that in some ways, about how there was such a massive focus on Marshall, and we were excited about that. Of course, we're not saying we had any idea, because we didn't know shit, but we were surprised, of course, by how much focus there was on Marshall, how involved he was in Nathan's life, and Nathan as a superhero too, and just overall how much thought Marshall gave just about the whole situation itself. He was the first person to encounter the black hole. Let us not forget. I mean, he did see it first. Nathan's the one who reached out, but Marshall did see it first.
It's like if Spider-Man died, and then and then Harry Osborn became Spider-Man somehow. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's a massive twist, and yeah, it definitely adds a really cool element. If you reread the first 3 issues, now you have a higher focus on Marshall and what he's doing, and Nathan's story is all the more sad and depressing. Like, if we get a panel next issue of of Mr. Burnett eating oatmeal by himself with like a worried look on his face, or like looking at the empty chair, like, that's gonna kill me. Like, it's such a rich world that Higgins has already built, with the artwork of Marcelo too, just showing the emotion and where we are. And it's crazy how much reread value this has in 4 issues already. Like, that's got to be a record.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, what can we say? Honestly, they were saying that this was a series for fans of Invincible, and it really is. If you like Invincible, it's safe to say that you might enjoy this. And yeah, a lot of people were talking about how the start of this series was a bit slow, but I don't know if you folks remember, the start of Invincible was a bit slow too. It was just basically a conventional superhero series at first, up until that Omni-Man reveal, and since then things kept going, up and up and up, and they just kept elevating after that, and you got some more awesome reveals. And here, I'm assuming that's what it's going to feel like. We just put, the gas on the pedal with this issue. We pick things up. We're finally, we got the main character of the series now. I think. I don't know. Nothing's safe anymore. This is some Game of Thrones shit. But yeah, I think we got the main character of the series now. We saw the solicitation for issue number 7 of Radiant Black, which dropped last Friday, and today is Tuesday at the time of recording. So, last Friday we saw the variant drop, and it's an amazing variant by Dinaculo, who is the artist on Seven Secrets. And
it's issue 7 too.
Yeah, it's interesting that he should do issue 7 of Radiant Black, and we tweeted him about that. He responded, and he was just saying, oh, he didn't notice, but we can't tell if he's messing with us or not. But either way, awesome stuff, because, we also brought up Seven Secrets last episode. We're big fans of Seven Secrets. It's an awesome comic book series, and to see the artist of Seven Secrets come do a cover for Radiant Black is really exciting. So, yeah, it seems that Marshall's going to be around for at least 3 issues. At least we know that much so far for sure. So, yeah, it's safe to say, at least for now, he's our main character, and that's quite an interesting turn of events. It's insane. Like, we had so many different thoughts about this while talking about this pre-recording, but we weren't really sure what trail to go down, because even last episode we had so many different ideas, and it just completely blew all of those out of the water, and that's awesome. But yeah, it's
I'm
tough.
happy to be wrong, especially when it's like this. So one thing that I do want to mention, I talked about that panel earlier where Nathan's moving back home and his mom says, you're a writer, you have been your whole life, that's not going to change. And she says, so what, come home for a little while. The great thing about writing is you can do it anywhere, and that's in bold, so it doesn't mean at home, but like, what if Nathan's consciousness is going to be somewhere out in the world, and he can kind of craft his grand narrative? He can maybe be moving the pieces, be the invisible hand on the chessboard in this Radiant War, and help out Marshall. I can definitely see some spectral form, or some, the essence of Nathan showing up in some form later on. Whether, you said to me something about him talking to him, like I said like Jarrell, but you first came up with someone else, right?
I'm not sure I remember, to be honest.
We'll have to go through our Discord. It's probably like 1,000 messages ago as we were just talking about this issue. But yeah, I just want to give you credit, because it was you that put me in the headspace to think that of like Jor-El talking to Kal-El being like his AI left behind, because it's synced with. We don't know if a Radiant's syncing with somebody. If that memory is just deleted, right? We don't know the extent of the Radiant is unknown. It's whatever Higgins can think of. I'm sure he's got the constraints thought of, and what it can and can't do. But the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I really don't know what to make of this. Honestly, all I can say is let's wait for the next issue. There's a few things we know about the next issue. We know that issue 5 is titled Radiant Revenge because it says so. At the end of the last issue where it says next Radiant Revenge. Actually, no, it's titled Aftermath, but Higgins has been tweeting Radiant Revenge, so we know that there's going to be it's going to be centered around revenge, or at least Marshall trying to kick Radiant Red's ass, which is overdue right now.
And as always, we're only talking about stuff that's there for the public, of like, hey, these are preview images and stuff like that. Like, we know there's going to be a beatdown in a quarry. I think it could be Nathan. No, it's Marshall time now. Marshall's going to be looking for, I don't know, maybe a rare fossil or something in the quarry as a get rich quick scheme already, if he's not just on a bloodthirsty path of revenge for for his buddy there.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, right? It's really interesting to think about how different things are going to be with Marshall being, the main character moving forward, with Marshall being in control. But it's really mind-blowing, you know what I mean? Like, we've been talking about how we're excited for, Nathan to meet other characters, for him to work with the officers and everything. But we've blown all that out of the water right now, because we've gone in a completely different direction. We haven't even addressed any of the stuff back home, because shit is cosmic right now. You know what I'm saying? We got bigger things going on, and I just can't wait to see what's going to go down in issue number 5. Seriously, we're just every day we got ourselves thinking, guessing, and just we can't wait. And one thing we got to bring up is that although Marcelo Costa is hurt right now, hopefully he recovers quickly, and we send him our best wishes. If anyone wants to express their
gratitude and well wishes his way.
Gratitude and well wishes. Yeah, you could contact him on Twitter or Instagram. I'm sure he'll be grateful. But in the meantime, there's some good news. We're getting a new artist on issue number 5 with Eduardo Farigato, who's done some of the covers on this series, including the cover A for issue number 4. So based on the teaser pages they've shown so far. They show a page or two or three, which we've shown on our Instagram, and it showcases a fight between Radiant Black, who is now Marshall, and Radiant Red, just fighting in a quarry, like Matt said. So that's exciting. The artwork's fantastic, of course, and we can't wait to see more.
Yeah, now I'm not sure if this is a path we're going to go on, but it's funny you mentioned Officer Peters and Officer Mills there, because who was the giant asshole to those cops out of the two of them when they were first encountered in issue 1? It was Marshall, right? So he was such a jackass to them, really. So
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna be so interesting. Like, how is this gonna work out? You know what I mean? Everything's changed now.
And there is a path where, this is the name of the issue, everything changes, and it really has. But there's a path where I could see where I don't know if we're going to go down that route where, Radiant Black, Nathan is gone, and these guys are going, and the cops can go, how'd you get the suit? And then, okay, let's where have you been? And then maybe you check his phone. His phone's gone. That's pretty convenient. We could see him go to prison or something, or be on the run from the police, because, there might not be footage of Radiant Red doing this. There could be some suspicion. So who knows? There could be a murder mystery. I doubt we're going down this path, but that's just one thing I want to mention. Food for thought.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to have that discussion when time comes. I mean, how is, Marshall going to explain everything to the Burnetts, right? That was almost our first concern, is like, how do we, the first two, issue 2 and issue 3 is such a big part of those issues with the Burnetts, Mr. Burnett in particular, but Mrs. Burnett was in there for a few panels too, and, they were important. We were beginning to get an idea of what Nathan's life was like, including the dynamic between him and his parents, and now there is no Nathan, so how's that going to be now with Marshall in the picture?
It's going to be a sitcom with him moving in. But no, what's funny is when they were first talking, when Marshall's first introduced, he says like, oh, can I have permission to take your son out drinking? And that changed Nathan's life forever. That's when they went and found the Radiant. And that's, what led to Nathan's demise there. So, it's not Marshall's fault directly, but, the parents could be pissed off. I can totally see a moment of her, like, of Miss Burnett running up and like punching him or something like that, saying like, how could you? Not that she's going to know he's a Radiant. They're just going to think Nathan.
Like, how do you even begin to explain that to Nathan? Is he going to say that Radiant Red killed him? Like, what happens? Plus, like, I just mean, like, is Nathan really dead? Like, are we gonna accept that as fact now? Is Nathan dead for sure, or is he physically dead, but he exists only in existence now? Maybe because of his synchronization to Radiant, that he exists in some other form, like Matt said. We don't know for certain anymore. This series is off the fucking rails. We don't know anything.
I mean, unless, I think he is really gone in this form, as I said earlier. I think that his body is dead, but, his spirit might live on. I mean, obviously, a lot of, dead people live on in the memories that they carry. And, like, Marshall's always going to be thinking and being, like, doing this for Nathan, right? Because he wants to, do this for his buddy, I'm pretty sure, on top of, his own selfish reasoning. But I think that, yeah, in some form, we'll see Nathan again.
There is, at the end of issue number 4, a reveal of issue number 5 artwork, and it turns out that the issue number 5 that was initially solicited, the artwork for cover A, did not have the complete artwork, because it turns out after the reveal, the ginormous, huge, amazing twist and reveal of this issue, it turns out that there's an edited cover with more artwork, and it was done by Diwali. We can see it here at the end of issue 5, and you could probably Google it now and they'll show you the complete artwork. But it's basically the hand gripping the black hole, and we see some light beams coming out of it, and each little beam has a memory of Marshall's childhood or life.
Yeah, I got to hand it to the staff there at Radiant Black for hiding that from us. It was great. And I love how, it's revealed here that on the bottom left, it looks like Marshall was Jake Lloyd all along. He's Darth Vader. Now he kind of looks like Anakin a little bit with that, the bowl cut kind of deal. But no, Higgins kind of described in detail what these images were. You see in the top left hand, that's Marshall's dad leaving the family there and him playing with the toy as a kid. There he is playing with the Radiant. And top right image is Marshall getting arrested. And he also mentioned in Radiant Radio that we're not going to see these in that issue. So there might be more on Marshall's history in the future, but it looks like that's just the actual thing of like Marshall's memories being showcased in the Radiant as he grabbed it, and maybe the sync happening super fast and some flashes of his life.
Yeah, and for those of you worried about this being like some kind of bait and switch or just something to subvert expectations, according to the main man Higgins himself, he says that don't worry, because everything happens for a reason and the story continues. So for those of you, all pissed off because, you think this is a bait and switch or you're really into Nathan, according to his words himself, Mr. Higgins, he says, the story continues. So just hang in there, check it out, check out the first arc, and I'm pretty sure you won't be disappointed. So give it a chance.
Yeah, and Nathan might not be alive throughout this, but I think it really puts a bullet point on, well, not a bullet point, like an exclamation mark on his short run here. And the thing, like, it's tragic. And when you reread this, as I've mentioned, I mean, you get like a deeper understanding. I almost wish writing day was even slower last week, so we had even more time to have time with Nathan, seeing his thought process. Like, he's writing these stories that are probably never going to be published now. It's just it's so sad seeing him struggle in Dad, crying in the car, and then thinking he has hope, he has this new ability, this new opportunity, and then he's dead now. Like, it's crushing as someone who loves The Leftovers and kind of like empathizing with these characters. It's just amazing storytelling, and it sticks with me big time.
Yeah, I can't help but agree with that. And the thing that really resonates with me is the fact that it wasn't just maybe someone like Marshall could have handled the situation better, but the real reason that Nathan died wasn't because he was a bad Radiant Black or anything. It was because he was just too empathetic of a human being. He was, too kind, too reluctant to kill others. He wasn't a murderer, and he didn't want to engage in murder. And the funny thing is, I somewhat respect Nathan because we don't know what the cause is that he's fighting for, right? The only thing that the Radiant being has told him so far is that there's a threat to your planet, but he doesn't have information. And while this person is synchronizing themselves, or this being is synchronizing themselves to Nathan, they might, have more information. They might be in a position where they have some leverage, but Nathan doesn't really. He doesn't really know what the fuck is going on. He's just trying to figure shit out. He's just trying to get his life together. And that really compounds in that moment because you feel that he's not just someone who's trying to get his shit together with his own life, but right now, the lives of the entire world is somewhat dependent upon him in that moment. At least that's what the being says. And that's a lot of pressure for someone who's already going through a lot of personal pressure.
One thing that that's a good point. One thing I want to mention is I don't know if I can see this happening, but I can see also if Marshall's thinking, I think the Radiant might be able to give him maybe flashes of Nathan's memories if it scanned him and it has all its memories saved to its whatever storage space it has or whatever. It could show memories of them as kids or something like that. If like he who knows what we could get from that. And another thing that I want to say is, you see earlier when they're talking before things go down, Marshall says he would do things that Nathan wouldn't do. And I don't necessarily think that Marshall would kill people in a regular circumstance, but now that this Radiant Red guy just killed his best friend, I think that now he might have the killer edge that he needs to go and actually kill this guy.
Yeah, and shout out to Sheldon Buchert Art, and shout out to Superior Spidey 500 for tagging us this week in their Instagram post. They brought the heat. One of them, Superior Spidey, posted a picture of his amazing, beautiful Radiant Black number 4, 125 by Diwali, and it just looks gorgeous. He's already put it up in a case. It looks like he's hung it up in the wall. Amazing pickup, my friend. Enjoy. What a beauty. And as for Sheldon, he actually picked up 3 copies, a copy of Radiant Black number 1 third print, and of course paired it up with the Radiant Black number 2 third print. Got the red on one side and the blue on one side. They look incredible, and he's got issue 4 in the background. We really hope you enjoyed them, and big fan of your artwork. Hopefully we could see some Radiant Black pieces by you soon. We've already seen the one you've done for issue 1, and it's fantastic. I gotta get my hands on one.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's amazing to see the covers of these. It's been great, and we haven't gotten to this yet. We're an hour into the podcast, but this new end segment of Marshall School of Business, chef's kiss. As someone who loves Nathan For You, I'm all about silly business ideas, and it's great to have these little things to like decompress after something so mind blowing just happened. I'm sure will happen in the future. It's nice to just relax and have something to laugh at.
Yeah, and I talked about in episode 1 or 2, we talked about how, a lot of the interactions within the real world feels like moments from the movies Clerks. Clerks, whether it's 1, 2.
Oh, yeah.
It just genuinely feels like some of those interactions, and Marshall's written so well, and in some cases almost like a Kevin Smith character where he's like intellectual but almost a little bit snarky. And these backstories at the end of the issue are amazing because they really just expand on his character and give us a good laugh, and they almost remind me of those funny backup stories with the characters in the back of comics like Guarding the Globe, where you used to get, Invincible with Spawn and all the other, like Harry Potter and all those other heroes, where they're just getting together and talking about Obama and stuff. And yeah, those really silly stories. And this is kind of like in that vein too. But I actually like this more because it really just shows you what Marshall's like. And now that he's the main character, I can't get enough of him.
Yeah, no, and it's great because it gives artists a chance to showcase their talents and great guest writers. I know that Kyle was saying that his friend and comedian Riley Trello, it says Trello there in the thing, but he pronounced it Trello, so I'm going to go with the way Kyle pronounced it. He's one of his good friends, and he came up with the School of Business title and stuff like that. And it's great that he's the first one to break the seal and give us such a fun little segment here.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how there's a small note that says the world's only accredited business school based behind a video store counter, but there's a little mark and it says not accredited. That's such a Marshall thing there, so we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I dig it where he's talking about this first one's about how newspapers might be dying out, but there's still kidnappers need them to verify the date that someone's been kidnapped to show that it's there. And I love it. I didn't quite look at the newspaper pages yet, but I love that it also has, like, on these specific newspapers, you can have people advertising products that you would use, like ski masks and gloves and stuff like that. I love that. So this scheme isn't that bad where you've also got, you can get advertisers involved. And I don't know, that's kind of shady if you're like a ski company or something selling these ski masks. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, and it's just fantastic stuff. This issue really has been a delight. Of course, there's a second backup story, another Marshall School of Business, and it's by Melissa Flores, and with art by Joe Hunter and lettering by Becca Carey. And another delightful story, honestly, really enjoyable. Different artwork, almost reminds me of the backup stories in Batman right now, where you have, more manga-like artwork in some of them, where they talk about Kid Kawaii and Ghostmaker, and everything. Really been enjoying those. But yeah, it's really, like Matt said, these are really a delight, especially after such a heavy-handed issue. And we're looking forward to more of these, as many more as you can give us. We love these.
Yeah, and programmers out there, if you want to make this app, I mean, no one's stopping you. It'd be pretty sweet. Like, it's a clever concept. I like I just like the app, like explaining like the canine companion is safe. He will return in Act 2 or whatever, reappear in Act 2. I love it, and just can't wait to see more of those. Higgins said that he had something like 12 already good to go. So.
Yeah, man, there's so many. I was so delighted. I was like, damn, 12 already. Let's go.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. I love it. This has been my favorite issue. I mean, it's hard to, the other three have been fantastic. Obviously, we've gushed about them, but this one has it all. This
one, it raised the stakes. We say that every issue, but this one really did change everything. And that's just something that's refreshing. Like we said earlier, it's hard these days to truly surprise an audience because there's so many spoilers out there, whether they're in solicitations, whether comic books are just written in a predictive like mold that every writer just follows. But Higgins really breaks the mold here. He's taking something, he's taking a new approach, and he talks about how that's a lot, in previous interviews he talks a lot about how this is in the vein of the spirit of Invincible. It's a superhero series that does not follow conventional superhero storytelling. He's very much trying something fresh and modern, and I love it. I'm here for it. I'm here for every issue. I can't believe how good this was. And one last thing, for those of you who loved this issue or who missed out on this issue, good news. There is a second print coming out, and I believe it was on FOC yesterday because we were recording on Tuesday, so it's already past FOC, but you could probably still find them out there. It's an amazing wraparound variant by Marcelo Costa, and we got, Radiant Red on one side or on one cover page, zapping, and we got Radiant Black on the other side, and just super awesome looking cover, almost like gives me Dragon Ball Z vibes. Must pick up for fans of the series. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, it should be in your stores on the 26th. So definitely you can probably spot those out in the wild. If you're keen, you can you can especially request that it's on your pull list at your comic shop and stuff like that, or there's online retailers as well. So yeah, definitely pick those up because it's really cool. Another thing I wanted to mention is when I went back and reread issue 1, I didn't notice, but Marshall's wearing a Crisis Couture shirt, and they're the band that did the trailer for Radiant Black, and they wrote a song specifically for Radiant Black, which is awesome, in the trailer that Bash has mentioned a few times.
With that trailer, we discussed before how there are some panels and scenes we've seen on the trailer that actually haven't appeared yet in any of the comic books, and that's worth investigating for those of you who are trying to find out more about the stories. Specifically, in our case, we're trying to find out more about that mysterious masked figure, which shows up towards the end of the trailer. Looks somewhat like a ninja wearing a cape or a cloak and holding a katana in one hand and a pistol in the other. I'm really curious, to see who this character is and what they might do in Radiant Black because they're red. So
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Future Nathan, but it's not him. And also, I do want to talk about how Nathan had the dream of seeing future him and saying he's not worth breathing. Like, was that just like a nightmare, or is that like I don't know. I don't think we're getting multiversal here, but who knows? It could be anything. It could even be like Nathan's brother or like his son from the future, for all we know. Like, the sky's the limit with the series, as I've said before. There's endless potential, so who knows?
it's true, and that's the thing we love most about this series is that really it can go anywhere. We talked about last issue how, we don't even know whether we're going to cross over with some Invincible characters, with other Image characters. We don't know where the series is going to go, and that's been something that's so refreshing and such a delight. We look forward to every single issue, and, this was such a good issue. Please pick it up. Please
Oh
check it
yeah,
out. Yep.
yeah. Support this series. I mean, just to have these books in your house alone. They announced that the first volume is going to be out that collects. I think it's 1 to 6 is going to be out in August. So if you missed out on the first few issues, you can have that collected for you right there, which is going to be pretty sweet. We don't know if Marshall School of Business is going to get its own separate book either. So you get the bonus of getting those stories, and if you buy the issues.
Yeah, I think they said those are only in the single issues. I'm pretty sure, but yeah, another thing they said that those were only going to be done on, beyond the 12 on issues where they have extra pages. So yeah, be on the lookout for those.
I just want to mention before, just one last prediction I want to put out there. In 20 seconds into that Radiant Black trailer that you can find on Image's YouTube channel that we've been mentioning, there's a woman staring at what appears to be YouTube, and it's reflected. You see her reflection. She's shocked. And you can kind of see it kind of looks like buildings, I guess. The image isn't that well put. There's not that much purposely. There isn't that much drawn on it. It just shows kind of like rectangles look like buildings. Presumably, I'm thinking that maybe that's Justine finding out about Nathan's death, right? Maybe she sees that the building and what went down in Lockport, and that could be her reaction. So who knows?
Yeah, we've had our conversations off mic about what's going down in the trailer, specifically, and we have our suspicions that one of the characters that shows up throughout the trailer, specifically between the 22-second to 25-second mark, we think that one of those characters that are arguing with the woman might be Radiant Red. Who knows, It's a character that seems important, but we haven't seen appear in the story yet, so that's quite an interesting trailer. We feel like there's a lot to unpack there, so take a look and let us know what you guys think.
Yeah, and there's also Nathan like launching into the air, right? In a panel that I don't think we've seen yet. So if that maybe that specific art just to showcase Radiant Black, or if that's something that happens in the future, obviously we're going to see at least Nathan or maybe that future Nathan again, because he's got it appears he's got the suit on too. So who knows what that could be.
Yeah, speaking on the subject of Radiant Black, one thing we haven't discussed yet, both of us we're readers, obviously. We like to read the series, we're big fans, but we're also comic book collectors, and, we collect Invincible, we collect other titles, we collect Marvel, DC, and now we collect Radiant Black. And speaking on that, nobody's really brought up, like, the key issues that we've had so far in Radiant Black. I mean, even the renowned key collector comic that most of the comic book industry or other comic book goers or the readers refer to, it's not up to date on Radiant Black issues. So what do you think on that?
Well, I mean this will obviously be a major issue, right? Like this is going to be a key issue 4, right? I don't think there's any arguments there.
I would say it would even compete with like issue 1 if it wasn't for the first appearance. Like the thing that issue 1 has on this, obviously spoilers, right? The thing that issue 1 has on this is that issue 1 has the first appearance of Marshall and Nathan, and I think his parents too. But issue 4 has the first appearance of Marshall as Radiant Black. So in the long term, people might, want that issue if he ends up being the main character of the series, which it looks like he is.
Yeah, or at least will be bigger than just the best friend, right? He's taking on a bigger role in Radiant Black. So yeah, this could be the first time he accepts it. But like next issue will probably be his first appearance as Radiant Black, right? This wouldn't count as the first appearance of him as RB.
That's true. It's like more like a cameo showing because he grabs the power, but yeah, he doesn't equip it yet, I guess. But yeah, I guess issue 5 will be the first appearance of Marshall as Radiant Black. And we talked earlier about how and do all these amazing artwork, they just revealed the different memories, different points of Marshall's life, which seem to be significant. Higgins talked about how issue 5 is also going to be a big deal. So maybe we're going to get some key moments in issue number 5. Maybe some sort of origin in some way, like a deeper origin, or maybe, even expand upon, Marshall's role as Radiant Black, because we know that in issue 6 we're diving into Radiant Red's
Radiant Red.
origin. Yeah, and that's going to be another key, obviously.
I think maybe we'll see Radiant Red's face maybe at the end of issue 5, just to tease it, just to like lead into issue 6. You never know, because I know they're supposed to fight it out in the quarry next week.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, like for those of you that are hunting the first appearances out there, we know that, the first issue is the first appearance of all the characters, including Radiant Red. But the first cover appearance of Radiant Red, he doesn't appear until issue number 2, 125, if I'm not mistaken.
Radiant Red?
Yeah, so
he appears at the end of issue 1, right? Like they tease him at the end.
No, but I mean on the cover.
Oh, cover, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he shows up on any of the Radiant Black number 1s.
No, and yeah, for those of you that are like myself and don't know like a ton about collecting, like the lower the print count oftentimes is like what you want to go for, because the more obscure it is, the more valued it is.
Yeah, and we don't even know if like something like Radiant Black will ever have value. We're just talking as collectors and enthusiasts of the book. But yeah, like, long term, if it ever does become something even remotely like Invincible, people are going to want number 1. They're going to want number 2, the 125 variant, because it has the first appearance of Radiant Red on it. And it's actually a really nice Rod Rice cover. So I highly recommend getting it just for, how beautiful it is.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned collecting, because there's this app, Key Collector Comics, out there, and this description really stood out to me. When you look at the issue 1 description, it just says a loser's fortunes are about to change after he finds the cosmic radiant, if he can fend off the rightful owners. Just referring to poor Nathan as just like a loser. Like it hurts, especially after his death this week. I just found it really funny.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you think about it, he's not just a loser from the sense of someone who hasn't fulfilled his career, but he's also a loser because he lost the Radiant Black power. So yeah. I don't know, man, that hits on multiple levels. I feel bad for Nathan. I really do. This is just a shocking issue. Really, I've read it so many times, and I still I'm shocked by the end of it because it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a juggernaut issue, and I'm wondering if this is like with Invincible, where like issue 10 and 11, where it's just like, wow, that's a big twist or whatever, and then like there got to be like maybe not a bigger twist, but like this it just opened up, and the scope of the story just like became massive after that point. So I don't know, this could be, maybe if we're on pace, this is just going to be the first of many massive twists and game changers.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about how people were, within the first few issues, they were looking for more action, more excitement, more, fast-paced stuff. They wanted the story to be more dynamic, and now we're going into that territory where it looks like issue 5, there's going to be a lot of action. So that's, something we have to look forward to. And, I don't know, if you're a fan of Radiant Black as in the character himself, then you want them, I'm assuming, to, beat up Radiant Red or, deliver some revenge. And we're going to get that next issue, hopefully. I'm assuming.
Yeah, one thing, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but there's also like the meta narrative that I can see on the outside of this, like knowing Kyle Higgins as, he was a filmmaker, right? He's a director, and he wants to be the one to direct the Radiant Black TV show or movie if there ever was one. So it's this cool like meta narrative, seeing like Higgins, like his original choice, he wanted to be a director, and now getting to direct his own comic property. Like you can see that story unfold before your eyes, almost just thinking about it. And I'm excited to see where that goes.
We noticed that the Radiant Black account had the in-universe account, according to Higgins himself, had a AMA earlier this week on Twitter where, they just had like 10 minutes of people, asking them questions, and they were answering anything. And I asked them a question. I was like, just curious, because we know, and I'm a big fan of Marshall. I've liked him a lot since issue 1. I thought he was hilarious. And one thing I really wanted to know, because I've noticed that, Marshall is a big enthusiast of movies. I wanted to know what was his favorite movie. So I asked, Radiant Black, I was like, what's your favorite movie? And he replied, The Shadow Hours. And interestingly enough, The Shadow Hours is a short film that was directed and written by Kyle Higgins.
Yeah, that's really sweet. I have to track that down. Like short films, I gain more appreciation for stuff like that as I get older, and that's really cool. I'm definitely gonna have to look up for that. And Kyle Higgins, he's a triple threat there with the writing and the directing, and there's a third threat, but we're gonna cut that stupid comment.
I mean, yeah, no, he's definitely a double threat. It's interesting. And the funny thing that I hadn't noticed, I mean, I noticed that the poster was there, but I didn't understand the reference, was that looking at the first few issues of Radiant Black, often when we're at the real world, we see that there's a lot of movie posters that resemble real life movies, and one of the posters that are on the wall is the Shadow Hours poster. So I'm just like amazed and blown away, and I see that, I see you, Higgins, playing those games, and I'm all in, man. I think that's hilarious. I think it's awesome, and I've got to track myself down some Shadow Hours so I can check it out.
That's the third threat editor because he's editing Inferno Girl Red, which is really sweet. So we were talking about predictions there. That has to be a tie-in, right? I feel like they're introduced, like she's going to be a part of that universe and could even fight in this war that we're leading up to, right? This massive war that the robot was talking about, right? So who knows? We might have to gather everybody, just like Invincible needed Tech Jacket. We might need Inferno Girl Red for this massive fight.
Why not? Like, if we're talking, there were articles, and I'm not saying these were true, and I'm not entirely sure who they were written by. So, all right, so there's an article posted by Bleeding Cool, and I know, Bleeding Cool doesn't exactly have a history being the most credible source or anything by that, but it's still interesting to see this idea being put out there. So there was this article posted by Bleeding Cool on January 12th, 2021. It was written by Rich Johnston. And once again, we don't advocate for this article or anything. I just thought it was an interesting read. But it says that, Radiant Black is going to kick off Image Comics superhero universe. Like, obviously, we don't know if that's the case or not. We don't know anything. We're not Higgins. We're not Costa. But one thing we do know is that Radiant Black has an awesome superhero design. It's trying to produce something, it's trying to be something fresh and new and trying to tell its own superhero story rather than following conventional superhero tropes, which we've seen Higgins say himself. And he likens that to Invincible in that sense, in the sense that, Invincible was groundbreaking when it first came out and really, changed the way superhero comics were told. And we can see a lot of that here, but we talked about in previous episodes how Invincible used the Kirkman verse, that little Kirkman verse where all those Kirkman characters developed. Could we see something similar here, like with, Higgins verse with the Inferno Girl Red, or could we even see Higgins using characters of, that he's editing for, working with other creators for, or because, Inferno Girl isn't his character, I don't think, but could we see him, mix it up with characters from both properties?
I can see it happening, right? Weaving these characters, like we forget we're 4 issues in right now. Like, but Higgins has obviously he's got big plans in mind. He says he has up to issue 25 planned out, but only 4 issues have been published and they're selling really well. We're getting second and third printings, which means that Image must have caught on, and I think they know because this has its own trailer. Image has been retweeting it all the time. I think they know they've got something good, and now the sales numbers is just confirming it. So that means expansion could be imminent for sure, and we already have Inferno Girl Red as we've talked about, and who knows what other creations or what other seeds are being planted behind the scenes as we get more artists and maybe new writers on board. Who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I feel like doesn't get enough recognition on this title is that it genuinely has one of the most consistent like cover games out there. Like, and I'm not just talking about the ratios or cover A. I'm talking about like all the covers, like cover A, B, C, or if there is a C, and then the ratios. Like, they're all so good, and it's honestly hard these days to find titles where there's such a consistent, like, strong cover work game, like where you see top-notch artists just killing it every week. I feel like we're lucky because we keep getting spoiled with all these amazing new covers, and who knows, like, we just got Radiant Black 7. There's even a cover B by Felipe Watambe. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but yeah, a magnificent cover B. And this really awesome cover C that I'm personally going to grab one or two of because I'm grabbing all the covers, but I might grab two of this one because I might hang one on the wall. But awesome cover C by Trevor McCarthy. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's got quite like the neon vibes going on. It almost looks like he's in the middle of got that whole neon vibe going on. It almost looks like he's in the middle of like the Bifrost there. It looks amazing, and I'm definitely grabbing one or two of those.
Yeah, I mean, just even going by the 4 issues that have been published in the variant covers, you're running out of digits to count how the awesome ones. I mean, they're all amazing. There's not one where I'm like, so. Like, the cover game is on point. And if they keep on this pace, it'll be the series with some of the best covers of all time. Like, it really is. I mean, if we go by just sheer amount, it's hard to keep up with like 800 or 1,000 issues of Detective Comics and stuff. But it definitely is. It's killing it right now.
Yeah, and funny you should say that because friend of the comic book industry and community, Jack DeMeo, or otherwise known as AKA Mr. Bolo, he's a content creator, and he's even said that in his opinion, Radiant Black has the best cover game in comics right now, and I personally agree. Personally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really like the Department of Truth covers, which are kind of like their own beast and stuff like that. Those are really sweet, but there's been more of those, and like stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, I'd say the Radiant Black cover game is, I think it's the best in the business right now.
Yeah, and if you want to see just how good the Radiant Black cover game is, I highly recommend checking out fellow Instagram user and Radiant Black enthusiast, My Radiant Black. That's their Instagram username, and they just basically it's similar to Every Invincible Ever on Instagram and Twitter. That other user who shows off their collection one issue at a time every day. My Radiant Black shows off their Radiant Black collection one issue at a time at a day, and they have all the variants. Like literally, like I thought I had all the variants. This person has all the variants. We're talking like the store exclusives, the limited ones, every single Radiant Black variant you could think of. They have it. Check it out. It's awesome. It's always a delight to see it. Pictures are amazing, and we just love Radiant Black being shared. So yeah, tag us on any Radiant Black stuff you guys have on social network. We'll respond. We'll feature you on our stories, whatever.
For sure. I love seeing this community bloom, and anybody that's missed out on the first issues, they're doing a lot of second and third printing, so you can still pick up the story and start from the beginning, or the trade paperback is coming out in August, which is going to collect the first 6 issues. So, there's plenty of ways to hop in if you missed the initial releases.
So yeah, Radiant Black Volume 1, the trade paperback is coming out soon. We've got the amazing #1, Radiant Black #1 variant by Eduardo Ferrigato being used for the trade paperback cover. Looks incredible. I love that variant. One of my favorite covers of the series so far. The trade paperback collects Radiant Black #1 to 6. And yeah, so for those of you who want to just get the trade paperback, want to read it all in one go, it's $16.99 US. But I'm pretty sure if you pre-ordered it now, it's still, it's still got a ways to go on FOC. If you pre-order now, you get like a 30-40% discount probably, so you could save a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I think that's kind of funny and kind of good in hindsight is that Marshall created the Twitter for Radiant Black because, he's going to be managing it a lot more now that we don't have poor Nathan around. So it's kind of cool. That'd be a pain to recover that password, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, since Higgins has said that this is an in-universe account, that represents the universe itself, like we can almost speculate that the person supposedly that's been replying to us this whole time is Marshall.
Yeah, we got to keep it kayfabe. So yeah, I assume that's Marshall. It's pretty cool. It's really meta to have it out there. I know there's a ton of like superheroes and stuff might have a Twitter account, or like I know MODOK just took over Marvel's Twitter account there and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff is pretty cool, and it makes Twitter a little bit more lively and more fun for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, we've got so much to look forward to next issue. Now we know for a fact that there is a love interest. We know about Justine, so we could hopefully meet her soon. And we know about, Radiant Red now. We know that he's a bastard. So we're just gonna go for him next issue, and I can't wait to see that. We've been waiting. Me and Matt, we've been waiting for the story to escalate to this point because we knew it was going to come to this point. We were excited. We've seen that the Higgins was laying down the foundation the first few issues, building up to something really exciting, and now that it's here, we're enjoying the ride. We can't wait for the next issue. Please check it out. Check out the awesome Radiant Black #3 third print variant that was announced this week. At the time of recording, we just seen it being posted. It's amazing. It's an amazing cover by Geraldo Borges and Marcelo Costa. It's got a 110 variant too. So for those of you that are, the ultra collectors that want all the covers, you gotta hunt that 110 as well. It's a black and white version of the cover, very similar to the late prints that came out earlier the previous weeks. So yeah, check that out. We actually just posted about it too.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention too is with Justine, you never know. She could get almost like a remixed Spider-Gwen origin where she loses Peter Parker, like with their friends in that universe. She could be losing Nathan, and then who knows? Maybe she gets some kind of radiant power. You never know. The sky's the limit here.
Man, we're just talking about death all over the place at this point. But no, that's interesting. That's a very good point. And we still have that character we brought up earlier in this episode, the character that appears in the trailer, the red character. And we're gonna post about that character on Instagram. We just wanted to wait for everybody to read issue 4 first because we didn't want to spoil anything. But this character that appears in the trailer has appeared before the release of any issue because I believe the trailer came out before issue 1 did. So there's no spoilers there. If you haven't seen the trailer, go see it.
Yeah, and send us your theories, guys. We really want to see what the audience is thinking because, hundreds or thousands potentially minds are greater than, just our two just spitballing here. So if there's anything we missed or anything that, we said that you think might have lit the fuse on your own theory, send it in and we'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, just message us on Instagram or email us at radiantblackpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, for sure. We'd love to hear it.
You never know with this series, and that's why it's amazing. But yeah, we just want to say thank you to everyone for following us. There's been immense support on all all the socials recently, on Twitter, on Instagram, even on the podcast applications. There's been a lot of support recently. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, Anchor, pretty much most conventional podcast places. Of course, our YouTube, where they're not videos, they're just, they're just footage of a recorded static background with the podcast.
Don't oversell it now.
But yeah, we've got big things moving forward. We were really excited for issue 4, but we both feel like there's going to be a lot more explanation in issue 5, and we feel like Kyle's been underselling issue 5. There's going to be a lot that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, it's 5. A bigger issue too.
Yeah.
For the same price, which is an awesome deal.
The end of arc number 1, but they're charging us the same amount of money. They're not charging us more, which is such a delight, and we appreciate that. So thank you. I know I'm gonna be picking up all the covers, and we highly recommend checking it out. It's gonna continue the story of what happens in this issue. We're hopefully gonna see a climax, and issue 6 takes on a different direction where we're gonna see the origin, presumably, or we're going to discover the background of Radiant Red and what his story is like. So
don't forget though, also in the back of that, Megan Camarena, the host of Radiant Radio, she has her comic there, is going to debut, Unleashed, I'm pretty sure it's called.
Sweet, there you go. Even more reason to get the next issue of Radiant Red. But yeah, for those of you who are interested in following more of us, please check us out at Radiant Black Podcast on Instagram and at Radiant Black Pod on Twitter. And for those of you interested in more podcast talk from us, and we have a second podcast where we talk all things Invincible, and it's called The Chiltramites. Check us out at The Chiltramites on Twitter or Instagram. And Matt's always posting amazing memes, really funny, good stuff, and we're quite active on all the socials. So yeah, we're just big fans of Invincible, and we love talking Invincible.
Yeah, we're always down to chat about all that nerdy stuff, and also pretty much a lot of the Image series that are going on now, and some Boom Studio stuff. There's a lot of stuff to be excited about. So yeah, just get at us there if you want to talk about it. And you've got your own personal Instagram too, where you talk about comics at the Comic Chic, right?
Yeah, follow me at the Comic Chic if you just want to talk comics or anything like that. I like to do some speculation, just talk about the comic book market and all things related to comics, whether it's reading, whatever, selling, anything like that.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And it's been a crazy issue. And if they get crazier than this, I don't even know if I can handle it. I'm excited. Like my mind was like melted after reading that initially, and I bet yours were the same. Yeah, and email us too if you guys have any theories or want anything read on the show.
Yeah, if anyone wants anything included in the show or has any questions, please feel free to email us at radiantblackpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, please check out Moonmist Music. We love their music. Amazing introduction for our podcast. And yeah, make sure you take care, get issue 5, and stay radiant.